by another 56 years. And after having recently put up the exhibit, The Commercial Rise of Asbury Park, I have learned that she's not just the longest African-American business operating on Springwood Avenue. Val's business is one of just a few businesses in continuous operation, not just in Springwood Avenue, but the entire city of Asbury Park.
Thanks for giving us that rundown, and I really appreciate the chance to be able to just take a step back, because I know it gets so easy for us to just get caught up in the day-to-days. But now more than ever, it's important for us to have that broader context. I just want to run through just a few more issues, and then we'll open it up, because I want to make sure we have enough time for a good number of questions. I get asked a lot about this next issue, which is about the Gateway Tunnel. This is something that's unfortunately made national news because Donald Trump said he's going to terminate the project and cut off all the funding to it. That's illegal. That's against all the contracts and against what we have done in Congress. And that's something that we may need to make sure we're standing up for. Not just because it's important to New Jersey, which it is. I mean, this is important for our commuters. This is important for our economy. This is important for, I have this bipartisan group of mayors that I've been talking to out in Brereton Valley that are talking about the importance for their communities. It's important for here. But it's also important for our country. This is a project that's going to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars in economic growth. It is arguably the most important concurrent construction project we have in the nation right now. So it's not just about our state or our region, it's of national importance. And which makes it all the more just infuriating when Trump, just because of political retribution, which is why this happened, says he's just cutting off the money. Because this is like one of the, there are a lot of crazy things happening, so it's hard to make generalizations, but this is one of the clear, just shoot ourselves in the foot type of situations that I've seen. There really is nothing good that comes out of it. We have 1,000 construction jobs that were put on hold. Construction workers that I talked to, they talked about how they thought they were going to have a decade of steady work. Now they're not certain. Some of them moved up to the area to be able to do this type of work. And the idea that the president might change his mind if he put his name on Penn Station, I mean, geez, have we gotten to that point where extortion is just so out in the open and rampant?
Yes, we have.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Yes, we have.
And I'm glad that a judge has so far pushed back on this, and I'm glad that we have a governor that stood up as well. So thank you, Mikey Sherrill, thank you to the Gateway, thank you to the board, thank you to others that are standing up and fighting this, because we were able to get over $200 million restored. But do I feel certain that this is going to continue? Unfortunately, the answer is no. So we got to keep at it through these legal challenges that are out there, but just continuing to raise the issue. And I had on a telephone town hall the Republican mayor that said this is not a partisan issue. We have to continue to press that. This is not something that we need to see, but unfortunately we're seeing that not just domestically, but internationally as well. We have an extortion foreign policy happening in this country. I was just in Munich the last weekend at the Munich Security Conference, where we saw just left and right, unfortunately, allies from around Europe and around the world just telling me in meeting after meeting that they're just moving forward. They cannot wait for our country to get our act together. And what happened a couple weeks ago when Trump was literally threatening military action to take Greenland, that was just the breaking point. And what was really sad, and I say this as someone who worked in diplomacy, I worked in foreign policy before, is that it just became very clear to me in Munich, something that I already felt, and I know you feel too, which is some of this damage that's being done right now is irreversible. It is irreversible, the damage. It's not going to be like, once Trump is out of office, and we have another president, that we're not going to have a we're back moment anymore. The rest of the world just doesn't trust, not just Donald Trump, it they don't trust our system of government right now. They don't trust the special interests and the billions of dollars of super PAC money that is, taking our democracy hostage. I mean, I think when the history books are written, that Citizens United decision will be seen as one of the most damaging, destructive things in the history of our country. And it was tough. It was tough. I say that as someone who lived and worked on a NATO military base in Afghanistan, 16 years ago. I saw our NATO allies come to our defense after September 11th, and now I see them literally asking, one of them asked me, if something were to happen to our country, if an attack happened to our country right now, can you say for certain that your country, that America, would respond? That's what's at stake here. They are, whereas we, the way I would sort of kind of say it is like, we are no longer seen as the indispensable nation, we are seen as the unreliable nation. And it's honestly, even goes beyond that now. Some of the countries that I've talked to, their leaders say that when they're talking in their own national security way, that they now talk about our nation as a threat. They talk about our nation as a national security threat that they now need to hedge against. And so I just wanted to share that with you because I was just there a couple days ago, and it's still very fresh from across the board. And we see that right now, things aren't slowing down on the international level. If you're seeing some of the news today, Donald Trump has positioned military assets all throughout the Middle East. We have now 2 aircraft carrier groups out there, 10 naval destroyer ships out there, as he is now threatening potentially in the next few days taking sustained and significant military action against Iran. Now look, I don't think anybody here is going to defend Iran. We know the dangers that they pose. But we also know the dangers that this poses. As someone who worked in Iraq, worked in Afghanistan, I worry so much about what our country has been through, especially when we have so many other challenges. So I say that, look, to this crowd right now, how many, raise your hand if you want to see our country go to war with Iran next week? Raise your hand if you think that if a president is going to take military action, that they need to hear from the voice of the American people and be able to bring this before Congress, right? If this is just what I find so crazy about this situation is we saw that military action in Venezuela, the boat strikes, the raid that got Maduro. We have not had a single public hearing in Congress, in the House or the Senate, dedicated to Venezuela, dedicated to the challenges that we're facing and this type of challenge that we're going through right now. I just wanted to share that with you because it is so unnerving, to see our government taking these steps that are putting our service members in harm's way. Do we have the best military in the world? Of course, and we are incredibly proud of how trained they are, but they are there for our defense. They are not there to be a personal militia to this president, that he can just use whatever he wants. It pains me whenever I take a train down to Union Station in D.C. and just see all the National Guard there. The idea that this president is trying to normalize us having military troops in our cities, in our streets, that is not right. And that's the kind of challenge that we see when he's using federal agents in Minnesota, when he's using the National Guard around our country, and he's deciding that he singularly can make these decisions that put our service members in harm's way and potentially increases the chance that the United States gets bogged down in a military conflict at a time when, again, the number one thing that we're concerned about is about affordability and the challenges that we're going through right now. And not only is he doing this militarily, but we're seeing that America first in foreign policy terms means America alone. And I saw that in Munich, and I see that with every other conversation that I'm having. And that scares me because, as I said, I got 2 little boys, and I don't want them to grow up in a world that is this chaotic and dangerous, but with America so isolated. You gotta be a friend before you need a friend. And we're gonna have a lot of challenges going forward. These are dangerous times. But I can tell you, we'd be better at getting through that when we're doing it alongside our allies and our partners. And when we're doing it with the American people involved and united behind these decisions. The last thing I'll just say, and we'll open it up, just more on the personal side, but it's an issue that I think probably resonates with a lot of you. Some of you might have saw, I announced, I gave a speech about a month or so ago, talking about how my father's been recently diagnosed with Alzheimer's. This has been a really challenging time for my family. We've seen this decline for some time, and it's all made all the more tragic by the fact that my dad was actually a scientist that dedicated his life to try to cure Alzheimer's. And now, when we were at the doctor's office doing the memory tests and other diagnosis, the doctor was asked to test about, where was he born, and this and that, and asked the question, what was your job, what was your career? And my dad said, I don't know. And you can't help but feel that Alzheimer's wins when my father no longer remembers that he was dedicating his life to trying to cure Alzheimer's. So I feel a real particular mission to really try to make sure we're pushing this forward, that we are engaging and continuing the medical research that this country so badly needs, that we've been leading on globally. And we can't let Donald Trump and RFK Jr. decimate the National Institutes of Health and decimate our ability to be able to do this type of cutting-edge research, which has saved so many lives. And one thing I will say, when people ask, what can you do in Congress, how can you push that? What I will say is that through the appropriations process, we were able to restore almost the entirety of the money that Trump was trying to cut from the NIH. Those are the types of things, I know, they don't make headlines, they don't always get that front page news, but there are ways that we've been able to push that, and those are things that we need to continue on. So I wanted to share that with you. But I also just wanted to say, this experience with my family and with my father, it has really shown me the challenges that so many face when it comes to caregiving as well. It's not just the fact that we have 200,000 people in New Jersey that have Alzheimer's. We have an estimated 600,000 people in our state that have Alzheimer's or dementia. But they're surrounding them are literally hundreds of thousands and millions of New Jerseyans, of Americans around this country, that are caregiving, that are trying to make ends meet, and seeing the incredible costs that it takes. This now in our state, the average cost of a single room for residential at home, residential elder care is roughly around $15,000 to $17,000 a month. Who can afford that? I mean, it's crazy how big broken things are gotten. So I'm working on legislation that will try to open this up for Medicare to be able to earnestly do what it should have been doing all along and be able to help people through these situations. For us to be thinking about other types of reforms to be able to support, but also make sure that these caregivers know that they're not alone and be able to give them some support and help. It's so important. I just end on this story. I had a neighbor a couple doors down from me a couple years ago. And I saw a for sale sign outside her door, and I saw her on the street, and I said, what's going on? And I saw you put your hands up. And she just started crying and telling me how her husband has dementia, and they just can't afford the care, and she needs to downsize. But she was saying, this was their forever home. This was the home that they raised a family in, and they were planning to grow old in. And she just broke down, just talking about how broken this is, and she's saying, I hope you can try to fix this one day. And I'll just tell you, I didn't understand fully what she was going through at that time. But I did. And I just, for as long as I am in the U.S. Senate, I just promise you, I will stay on top of these issues about healthcare, stay on top of these issues about care in general and the challenges we are facing. And I'm going to do everything I humanly can to try to fix this once and for all, give us the kind of justice that we deserve when it comes to our lives, when it comes to our health care, and for us to be able to be there for our loved ones. And I hope that's something that people across the political spectrum want, because Alzheimer's doesn't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. caregivers are Democrats, Republicans, like it's all of us. So yes, we have issues that we're divided on. But I've also seen the power of trying to mobilize and build a movement around these issues that hit us at our fundamental core as human beings. And I think that hopefully will show us the way of how we pull out of this tailspin we're in as a country and get us back on a path where we can hopefully say to our loved ones that we will work and have the kind of support that they need to be able to live lives of dignity and decency. Thank you. So I'm going to take questions as long as we can. We do 2 at a time just to kind of make sure we go fast.